So good evening. Welcome to part 2 of Words of My Perfect Teacher. And so as we begin the part 2, we're going to talk about primarily refuge and a few components that contribute to a positive taking of refuge. And we start with recognizing that refuge is, in the words of Patrul Rinpoche, the foundation stone of all paths. And the very first paragraph on page 171 says, crowned with the 3 jewels of the outer refuge, you have truly realized the 3 roots, the inner refuge. You have made manifest the 3 kayas, the ultimate refuge. Peerless Teacher, at your feet I bow. So it says, taking refuge, the foundation stone of all paths, is explained under 3 headings: the approaches to taking refuge, how to take refuge, and then later the benefits and precepts. So we start with this word, which we've talked about before, but we're going to talk about it in a slightly different way. And the word is faith. So even before taking refuge, we want to look at faith. And really, for our conversation this evening, we want to look at what inspires. So faith really rests in what inspires us. And I have shared that today, many years ago, was the first time that I had ever undertaken a Buddhist meditation practice, and it was in Bodh Gaya, India. And I remember, in terms of what we're talking about this evening, what did inspire me? You know, of course, at first, like many of us, it's curiosity. What would this be like? What is this meditation? And in my case, what is Buddhism? But the first kind of faith is called vivid faith, and it's really inspired. It's inspired by, if we know anything about the qualities of the Buddha. And in my case, I met a teacher who could speak English, who was from Burma, and had both charisma, a kind of wisdom, power, and compassion. And I thought, those are wonderful qualities. So for me, there was this vivid faith that sparked something. It was like, I'd like that. So vivid faith is when we see qualities that we admire and think, oh, I would like to follow that path. There's also, in the book, describes on page 172, eager faith. And of course, many come to Buddhism with eager faith, and that means to be free of suffering and enjoy liberation and the happiness that it brings. And even in the last few days, I've been reflecting on the happiness of refuge. And I was, in a circumstance that was a little bit, for me, a riddle. Somebody said, oh, that's a riddle. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to solve this riddle. And I thought, oh, refuge. And I just stopped what I was doing and took refuge. And, without it being too magical and mystical, many things resolved. So we're going to read a little bit more about refuge, and that indeed, when our intention goes to refuge, it allows a lot to resolve, as well as gives us guidance and a path. So again, eager faith is to be free of suffering, enjoy liberation and happiness. And many come to Buddhism because of some cause of suffering. And we can have both. We can have vivid faith, we can have eager faith. And then there's confident faith. And confident faith is that deep sense that the three jewels and the understanding that comes and the incredible blessings, what's called the infallible refuge, is very deep and grounded within us. So we can even watch the kinds of faith that we have evolve into a confident faith. And again, using this word cornerstone, confident faith, that we're creating this incredible foundation for refuge. And then on page 172, it says the faith of total trust. So on the middle of the confident faith is a paragraph, a small paragraph in italics. The faith of total trust allows the blessings to enter. When the mind is free of doubt, whatever you wish can be achieved. This is a huge sentence, I think, so that we're saying that just by refuge, just by confident faith, we have the capacity. And as once mentioned, the doubt, the roots of doubt is dualistic thinking. So when dualistic thinking lifts, then there's more space, there's more acceptance, there's more bringing in the blessings that come with the refuge. It's important to say when we're talking about these three kinds of faith that none of it is blind faith. So we're not talking that this is only belief, but rather that we are inspired. We're inspired by positive qualities. We are inspired by the teachers themselves, or we're inspired by hearing the life of the Buddha or Padmasambhava. So these are really what sparks our attention, but it's not blind faith. Blind faith isn't even looking. It's just, it's not analyzing and it's not critiquing in any way. So the faith is based in our seeing. And as said before, it's doubt that holds us back. So also on page 172, on the bottom sentence, another profound sentence, it says, faith is the most precious of our resources. It brings an inexhaustible supply of virtues like a treasure. It carries us along the path to liberation like a pair of legs and gathers up everything positive for us like a pair of arms. So this is the power of faith. And then on the top of page 173, it says, faith is the greatest wealth and treasure, the best of these legs. It is the basis for gathering all virtues like our arms. So there's a real emphasis that just by having faith, we are going to come into the circumstances. And so many people have that experience just by, I think I'd like to do this. And then the circumstances arise. And we always think, well, where did that come from? How did that happen? And really, it's us. It's in our own mind. It's in our own intentionality. And it's what we're opening to. And also on the top of page 173, The compassion and blessings of the three jewels are inconceivable, but nevertheless, their ability to reach into us depends entirely on our faith and devotion. So again, we're in charge of what we're receiving. I love this sentence in the middle of 173. It's just incredibly sweet, where it says, and the great master of Odhyana, who is, of course, Padmasambhava, it says that he came from the land of Odhyana. For all men and women with faith in me, I, Padmasambhava, have never departed. I sleep beside their door. And for me, there is no such thing as death. Before each person with faith, there is a Padmasambhava. So wonderful. I sleep beside their door. So we're going to go on to So on page 174, there is a story, and that story is making a point. And the point is made on page 176, and that's about our capacity. So on 176, it says, probably the second paragraph down, our capacity to receive the compassion and blessings of the teacher and the three jewels, therefore, depends entirely on devotion and faith. And it tells, for those of us who have the book, Words of My Perfect Teacher, it tells a very well-known story. And so then we move into what's called motivation. So we have faith, and then what is our motivation? And we're going to skip down to the bottom of page 176. And it says, the refuge of great beings. And the refuge of great beings is really what we have been working with in Samden Ling with the Longqing Ningtig Nunzhou that we are doing weekly. And we are working with the motivation of great beings. So what happens is that great beings do see suffering. And for those of us who've been practicing for longer periods of time, it's always amazing that we see more into our own suffering, we see into the world's suffering, and of course, always using the term of Thich Nhat Hanh to not turn our eyes from suffering, so that we take that into complete consideration. And it says, the sight of all beings plunged into the great ocean of samsara, meaning life's infinite sufferings, undergoing unimaginable variety of torments, motivates us to take refuge with the idea of establishing them in the unsurpassable and omniscient state of perfect and complete Buddhahood. Now, we also have that in the Longqing Ningtig Nunzhou, where part of our sharing of merit, which we've talked about, is to become a great guru. So the great guru is actually that we would like to have the compassion of the Buddhas and be able to help all beings and establish them into perfect Buddhahood. So we're starting to see that this faith, which is in incredible positive qualities, in virtue, and with the motivation to end suffering for as many as we can. So we have the faith, we have the motivation. This becomes the cornerstone again for our refuge. And always important to say that what we are taking refuge in, although at first it's the seeing the Buddha, knowing the Buddha's compassion, the Dharma, the teachings, the Sangha, the companions, or the Arya Sangha, the monastics, is that it's going deeper than that. It becomes eventually the recognition that we have never been apart from. Never been apart from our own Buddha nature, never been apart from the Dharma, never been apart from our spiritual companions. But it takes a journey, it takes a path to recognize that. So a lot of the path is coming to recognition. And so where we're going to go is on how to take refuge and what the fields of merit are. And it becomes a recognition that the fields of merit that we're going to talk about, the refuge tree that we've spoken about in our meditations, and which in a moment, Dechen Somo is going to put up a picture of the refuge tree. And then, I've never done this before, but I'm going to read from Patrul Rinpoche what that refuge tree is. Okay, so thank you for posting that. I'm going to say a few more words about refuge and then to also describe this reading. And so in the how to take refuge, which starts in the middle of page 177, according to the basic vehicle. So when we first start, one takes refuge in the Buddha as the teacher, in the Dharma as the path, in the Sangha as companions along the way. The general method of extraordinary secret mantra is to take refuge by offering body, speech, and mind, and taking what's called the Yiram as support, and the Dakinis as companions. So we've taken another step deeper into refuge. And then comes the special sublime method of Vajra essence to take refuge in the rapid path, whereby one uses the channels, our own inner channels, as the Nirmanakaya, and trains our own inner energies as the Sambhogakaya, and purifies the essences as the Dharmakaya. The ultimate and infallible refuge in the indestructible natural state is based on primal wisdom inherent in the refuge. So here, what we're beginning to see is that what we began, I know as I began many years ago, the first refuge that I took was in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. And for the retreats, we actually took refuge in the teacher so that we would have the faith to follow the teacher. And so here we're moving more into Vajra essence itself. So the wisdom's essential nature is emptiness. So this becomes key. This is a key component. This is something that when we are working with any kind of visualization, understanding, the wisdom of what's called emptiness non-self. It says that wisdom's essential nature is emptiness, its natural expression is clarity, and its compassion is all pervasive. So taking refuge here means to realize in one's own mind stream with total confidence the great inseparability of these three aspects of primal wisdom. So again, we're moving into the refuge of the primal wisdom, which includes the emptiness, the clarity, and compassion. So at the bottom of page 177, having gained a clear understanding of these ways in which refuge should be taken, we now go on to the actual practice of taking refuge. So we first visualize the field of merit, and we're going to look up that as a note in the back. So there's some pretty nice notes in the back. And this is note 112. And it says the field or objects of refuge for accumulating merit through prostrations, offerings, and prayers. Because of the enlightened qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the effect of any positive action directed toward this field of merit has enormous power. And there's also in the glossary field of merit. So here we have that even if we visualize the field of merit, we take refuge in the field of merit, that we are already generating enormous positive energy. Now, this positive energy is called merit. It takes merit to be able to really receive the blessings. And so it's all very intertwined. So on page 178, and this is a little different. So we're here, we're all here, but for the taking of refuge, and this is very traditional, consider that the place where you are, who are sitting to take refuge, is a Buddha field, a beautiful and pleasant, made up of all sorts of precious substances. It's a way of letting go of our ordinary minds, of our ordinary places, of our maybe what we just did today. The ground is as smooth as the surface of a mirror, without any hills, valleys, or irregularities. In the middle, in front of us, grows a wish-fulfilling tree with 5 great branches spreading from its trunk. Its perfect leaves, flowers, and fruit stretch so far to the east, the south, the west, and the north that they fill the entire sky, and every branch and twig is hung with a multitude of entrancing jewels and bells of many kinds. And it's fine if you want to follow along or just listen or just look at the field of refuge. And as I read it from Patrul Rinpoche, and I'm now on page 178. The central branch is a jeweled throne upheld by 8 great lions seated upon the throne on a seat consisting of multicolored lotus. A sun and a moon is your own glorious root teacher, incomparable source of compassion, embodiment of all past, present, and future Buddhas. So if we're studying with Patrul Rinpoche, if we're studying with another teacher, it all comes into the field of refuge. And that guru appears in the form of the great Vajradhara of Odayana. And of course, that is Padmasambhava. His body is of a compelling white color with a rosy gleam. This is very traditional. He has one face, two arms, and two legs. He's seated in the royal posture. In his right hand, he holds a golden 5-pronged vajra with the threatening gesture. In his left hand, which rests in the gesture of meditation, he holds a skull cup containing a vase filled with the ambrosia of deathless wisdom. The lid of the vase is topped by a wish-fulfilling tree. He wears a brocade cloak, monastic robes, a long-sleeved blue tunic. On his head, the lotus hat. This is very famous. He wears the lotus hat. He is part of the lotus family, and it's said that he was born a lotus in the lake. So he wears a lotus hat. Seated in union with him is his consort, the white Dakini Yeshe Sogyal, holding a hooked knife and a skull cup. Visualize him like this in the space before you, facing toward you. Above his head are all the lamas of the lineage, seated one above the other, each not quite touching one below. The teachers of the general Tantra transmissions are innumerable, but here we visualize particularly the main figures of the hard essence lineage. And once again, through Samden Ling, the Longqing Ningtig Nundro, we are working with the hard essence lineage. The hard essence lineage of the great perfection, Samantabhadra, who's the Dharmakaya, Vajrasattva, the Sambhogakaya, Garab Dorje, and we know him as the first human to receive the Dzogchen transmissions, the Nirmanakaya, and the great master Manjushri Mitra, and we've heard that name before, Guru Sri Simha, and we've heard that name before when we talked about the precious garland, the learned Jana Sutra, we know who that is, the great Pandita Vimala Mitra, Padmasambhava of Odiyana, his three closest disciples. We know them as well, king, subject, and consort, the Dharma king Trisong Detsu, the great translator Vajrasana, the Dakini Yeshe Sogyal, and we all know the omniscient Longchen Rabjam, and Rigzen Jigme Lingpa. Each of them should be visualized with their own particular ornaments and attributes. They are all surrounded by an inconceivable multitude of Yiram deities of the 4 sections of Tantra, by the Dakas and the Dakinis. On the front branch is the Buddha, the conqueror, Shakyamuni, surrounded by thousands and 2 perfect Buddhas of the good Kalpa, as well as the other Buddhas, the past, present, and future, and of the 10 directions. All of them are in the supreme Nirmanakaya form, garbed in monastic robes, bearing all 32 major marks of Buddhahood, the crown protuberance, the wheel marked on the soles of the feet. We see that in a lot of pictures and statues. And the 80 minor signs. They are seated in the Vajra posture. They are white, some yellow, some red, some green, some blue. And inconceivable rays of light stream forth from their bodies. On the right-hand branch, visualize the 8 great close suns, headed by the Bodhisattva protector of the 3 families, Manjushri, who we know is the deity of wisdom, Vajrapani of great strength, Avalokiteshvara of compassion, and surrounded by the whole noble Sangha of the Bodhisattvas. They are white, yellow, red, green, and blue. They are all wear the 13 ornaments of the Sambhogakaya. They're standing with both feet together. On the left-hand branch, visualizing the two principal Shravakas, Shariputra, Moggallana, surrounded by the noble Sangha of the Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, all are white in color, dressed in the 3 monastic robes. They too are standing, holding their staves and alms bowls in their hands. On the rear branch, visualize the jewel of the Dharma in the form of piles of books. Topmost of them, encased in the latticed lights, are the 6,400,000 tantras of the great perfection. The label of each volume facing towards us. All these books appear very clearly, distinctly, resonate with the spontaneous melody of the vowels and consonants, and this is of the Tibetan language. Between the branches are all the glorious Dharma protectors, both the wisdom protectors, the protectors constrained by the effect of their past actions, male protectors all face outwards. Their activity is to prevent outer obstacles from coming in, protecting us from hindrances and conditions unfavorable to practicing the Dharma and attaining enlightenment. The female protectors all face inward. Their activity is to keep inner accomplishments from leaking out. Think of all of these figures of refuge with their immeasurable qualities of knowledge, love, and power, leading us as our only great guides. Imagine your father in this lifetime is with you on your right side, whether your father is alive or not alive, and your mother is on your left side, the same. In front of you, gathered together in an immense crowd covering the surface of the earth, are all beings of the 3 worlds, the 6 realms of existence, the first row consisting of all adversaries. So if anybody's angry at you or you're angry at them or you had a row or something, or they detest you, it says, and all obstacle makers who harm you, all these beings with you are standing up with palms of their hands joined, expressing respect with your body, and we are all doing prostrations, expressing respect with our speech and reciting all together the refuge prayer. So if you ever want somebody who's not taking refuge to take refuge, bring them in. It's not forcing it upon them, but it's just bringing in the blessings. Expressing respect with our minds and cultivating the following thought. O teacher and 3 jewels, whatever happens to me, favorable or unfavorable, pleasant or painful, good or bad, whatever sickness and suffering befall me, I have no other refuge nor protection than you. You are my only protector, my only guide, my only shelter, my only hope. And from now on, until I reach the very heart of enlightenment, I place all of my trust and faith within you. I shall neither seek my father's counsel, nor ask my mother's advice, nor decide on my own. It is you, my teacher, and the 3 jewels that I take as my support. So of course, we're going to ask our parents for advice, but this means that we're putting our refuge in front. It is to you that I make my offerings. I pledge myself to you alone. I have no other refuge, no other hope than you. And with this burning conviction, reciting the following texts in the Sugatas of the 3 roots, the true 3 jewels, in the bodhicitta, nature of the channels, energies, and essences, and in the mandala of essential nature, natural expression, and compassion, I take refuge until I reach the heart of enlightenment. And that's what we also have, that we say weekly, daily, in our own refuge. This gives it a few more words, but this is an expression, the refuge tree, the taking of refuge. And it's hard to remember all of these aspects, but even seeing the refuge tree or having an image can be helpful. And then sometimes we remember a little bit, remember, oh, yes, I'll put my parents beside me. I remember the first time I did that, I thought, I don't know if they want to be here, but, I put them there, and I like the words that they use. It's respect. So we're putting our, it's called enemies, but, even the word he put, people who detest us or might have a problem or meddling in some way, and that we include them. And they're in the front row. So they get a lot of strong blessings. And Patrul Rinpoche has something to say about that too. So in the latter part of page 180, he says, he gives us the instruction, say this as many times as possible in each session. And certainly for those doing accumulations, that's what we're doing. We're saying all of those refuges all of the time until you have said it. And here we have it in writing, at least 100,000 times. So if you're ever wondering, where did that 100,000 come from? There it is, Patrul Rinpoche. Be sure to practice it in distinct sessions and make it your constant and most important practice. So again, this is our Longqing Ningtig Nuntra, which we are doing on Wednesday mornings, and some people are doing it sometimes, some people are doing it every week, some people are doing it every day, and with our accumulations. And Patrul Rinpoche goes on to say, you might wonder why your enemies and obstacle makers are given precedence over your parents in the refuge practice, since they are visualized in front of the crowd, while your father and mother are beside you in the back. The reason is that we who have undertaken the great vehicle must have the love and compassion of bodhicitta equally for the whole infinity of beings. More particularly, the only way to accumulate an immense amount of merit and not waste all that we have already accumulated is, and you're going to love this one, make patience our main practice. Who knew? As it is said, how could we practice patience if there were no one who made us angry? It is the harm caused by enemies and obstacle makers that gives us the opportunity to develop patience. Careful observation will show you that from the point of view of Dharma, enemies and obstacle makers are kinder to you than your own parents. Your parents, by teaching you all, oh my goodness, the trickery and deceit necessary to succeed in this world, oh well, can prevent you from getting free from the depths of the lower realms in your future lives. So their kindness is not as great as it seems. On the other hand, enemies and obstacle makers are extremely kind to you. It is the adversity your enemies cause you that provides you with a reason for practicing patience. So there you have that one. They separate you, whether you like it or not, from your wealth and your possessions, the bonds that prevent you from ever getting free from samsara, and therefore the very source of all suffering. Negative forces, obstacle makers, too, provide you with a focus for the practice of patience. Through the illness and sufferings they provoke, many past misdeeds are purified. And I think that's always important to remember, that a lot of times what our experiences are resultant karma. And when we can look at it as resultant karma, then patience is not hard. What is more, enemies and obstacles bring us to the Dharma, as happened to Jetson Mila, that's Milarepa, whose uncle and aunt robbed him of all of his wealth, and to the nun Palmo, who, because she had been stricken with leprosy by a demon Naga, devoted herself to the practice of Avalokiteshvara and subsequently attained supreme accomplishment. The omniscient Longchenpa, king of the Dharma, says, assailed by afflictions, we discover the Dharma. And that goes back to the kind of faith where we want to be free from suffering. We find the way to liberation. So thank you, evil forces. When sorrow invades the mind, we discover Dharma and find lasting happiness. Thank you, sorrow. Through harm caused by spirits, we discover Dharma and find fearlessness. Thank you, ghosts and demons. Through people's hate, we discover Dharma and find benefits and happiness. Thank you, those who hate us. Through cruel adversity, we discover Dharma and find the unchanging way. Thank you, adversity. Through being impelled to by others, we discover Dharma and find the essential meaning. Thank you, all who drive us on. We dedicate our merit to you to repay your kindness. What a perspective. So we can carry on with patience as our practice and benefiting all who are driving our practice. So it talks more about the actual kindness. It says, not only have your enemies been kind to you, but all who've been your parents in past lives. And it says that is why you should give them an important place in practice. So really all beings from numerous times. And then it says, when the time comes to conclude the session, visualize that your yearning, devotion, causes innumerable rays of light to stream out from the refuge deities. The rays touch you and all sentient beings, and like a flock of birds scattered by a sling stone, you all fly up with a whirring sound and dissolve into the assembly of deities. And so we've also talked about that when we're doing the refuge, we're taking a moment where we're allowing our energy, we're allowing our attention to go into the field of refuge. And now through the visualization, we have a better idea of what that looks like. And it says, then the surrounding deities melt into light. And we have that in our Longchenpa Tignindra when Padmasambhava melts into light. So melts into light from the outside inwards and dissolves into the teacher in the center, embodiment of the three refuges. All the deities above the teacher's head also dissolve into him. And now we're talking Padmasambhava. The teacher then dissolves and vanishes into light, and rest for as long as you can in the primordial state, free of all elaboration, the Dharmakaya, without any movement of thought. So here we have what was mentioned in the beginning, that the essence of the refuge is the wisdom essence, the emptiness. And so we have brought forth the whole refuge tree. We have dissolved into the heart of the guru. All has dissolved. And then we rest into that primordial state, which we've never been separate from. So we rest for as long as we can in the primordial state, free of all elaborations, the Dharmakaya, without any movement of thought. And as we re-arise from this meditation, we dedicate the merit to the infinity of beings with the following words. Through the merit of this practice, may I swiftly accomplish the three jewels, establish every single being without exception on their level. And so this is our refuge in a little more elaborate way that we do in our practice and our Longchen Nyingtig Waves of Splendor practice. And we remember to be all-inclusive. We're reminded that patience is our practice and that we're sharing our merit with all beings, whether those we have difficulty with, those we're close to, those who are mischievous, and that we include our parents, and what's not mentioned, it's also male relatives, female relatives, and we sit with them. And it's pretty interesting what happens, again, whether they're still physically with us or not, but that we do respect them by including them. So our session for this evening has concluded. Our next session will be on precepts and benefits of taking refuge, and we'll just keep continuing with part 2 and bring us a little bit, closer to the practice that we do every Wednesday morning to our Longchen Nyingtig practice through Samden Ling, samdenling.org. And so little by little, we're coming more in depth with that and realizing that although at first this used to be called preliminary practices, just like Patrul Rinpoche said, it's really the cornerstone. So it's now called foundational practices, and it's built with the faith, of which we've described, the motivation, which we've described, and then the practice, which then can come very naturally. So thank you so much. And we conclude our evening, and then we stay for a bit of our personal chat, which is not recorded.